Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to two high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self.
I'll
be right there. Where was I? Hi, this is Julie. A few weeks ago, I had the honor of recording a powerful episode with the co-host of the Wild Black podcast, Darius Hicks. In addition to releasing that conversation here, Darius shared it on the Wild Black podcast feed, and since then, over 10,000 people have tuned in. If you haven't heard it yet, I encourage you to add it to the top of your playlist. As an exchange, I asked Darius if I could share an episode from the Wild Black podcast with the Mother's Quest community. When he said yes, I knew which episode I wanted to share. In fact, it was the one that inspired me to invite Darius on. Recorded after the lynching of Ahmaud Arbery, it features the reflections of four successful and driven Black men speaking honestly about how they were doing in the aftermath. They get candid about their mortality, their ability to trust this country, and what they would tell white America given complete access. In the last 7 minutes of my conversation with Darius, 7 minutes I truly think every American citizen should listen to. He tells us about the thoughts and emotions he's experienced as a Black man before and after the death of George Floyd. He reveals his fear that the solidarity and push for change may subside. By listening to this episode, I hope your understanding will expand a little more, and that you will stay committed to listening and to advocating to help ensure that Darius's worst fear does not come true, that the last few weeks are not merely a moment in time, but truly a movement for Black lives. So here it is, Wild Black podcast episode on the Mother's Quest podcast, titled Ahmaud Arbery is All of Us. Can I live?
What is it you wanted me to reconcile myself to? I was born here almost 60 years ago. I'm not going to live another 60 years. You've always told me it takes time. It has taken my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephew's time. How much time do you want for your progress?
I'm tired of having to wake up every day and feeling like I have to fight just for my right to exist, just to breathe.
I feel like I have a right to live.
I'm at a point where, my core beliefs have been shaken to where I am barely holding on. I'm holding on by a thread right now.
I'm super confused about how the world can love the product that we can create, yet hate us so much.
My value is that of heaven sent, right? It's God-given.
This one hurts more because even in this season, we're still despised and hated, and I don't understand that.
When I think about how I'm feeling as a Black man in America right now, all my hope is gone. I'm keeping it 100. I'm comfortable with who I am. What I want is for them to be comfortable with who I am. I think that's what the problem is. It's not us. 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 It's not us.
Welcome to Wild Black, a seriously opinionated podcast bringing you the real and raw on anything happening Wild Black. If Black culture's there, we're there. If you're pissed or empowered, then let's talk about it. Ride with us on this all Black everything.
Everybody, welcome back to Wild Black. This is when Art normally says welcome back, but he's not here today. We are bringing you a special episode of Wild Black, and it's really all about how Black men are feeling right now in the wake of these new tragedies that have come to light. Mr. Ahmaud Arbery was lynched in February. It took 74 days of videotape and national outcry for that arrest. Mr. Sean Reed was murdered on Facebook Live, and we got to hear the police officers involved murder about the fact that his casket would have to be closed service. If you think back a little bit further, Mr. Marquise McLaughlin was murdered on tape when all he did was create space between his family and an aggressive man outside of a convenience store. That arrest took 25 days. So we see a pattern that's emerged here. And with all these patterns, Black America has to remain together. We have to remain calm. We have to remain active. We have to do our days as if nothing's bothering us. And it creates some feelings. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm disappointed. I'm concerned. I'm tired. But more than anything, I'm fed up. And every day I'm expected to show up and act, show up and behave, show up and be normal when inside my emotions are pulling me in 800 directions. I have to do this while I watch Black America struggle with the same feelings that I'm dealing with. I have to do this with the modifier American attached to my name when I don't feel welcome in America every day. I struggle with America being my home sometimes, just being honest. It's the only home I've ever known, yet it doesn't feel warm all the time. It damn sure doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel mine. And even though my bloodline and yours literally built it, I don't always feel like I belong here. Every day I struggle with the fact that I've lost count of the names of the Black men and women who've been killed by police or police-related personnel. I struggle with the fact that I honestly don't know if I can't remember the names or I'm protecting myself inside from the reality that we're being hunted and murdered and no one in power seems to care enough to change it. I say all of that to open this episode because today I don't have experts, because nothing qualifies you to handle life in this country as a Black man. We all just kind of wake up and get to work. We're forced to learn this job every day with on-the-job training. There's no graduation, and it's starting to feel like if there was, I don't know how many of us would be alive to walk across the stage. But what I have for you today is a panel of men, all close to me, all Black men that I know, respect, look up to, seek counsel from, talk to about different things. These are Black men that are open to telling you how we really feel today. Now, everyone won't agree with everything discussed, and that's okay. It's actually encouraged because we all don't agree on everything anyway. But what's important is that we agree on the goal here. So, with that, I want to introduce who you're talking to today and who you're hearing from today. But remember, today is not about where they went to school. It's not about what they do professionally. It's not about what book they wrote. It's not about how they feel normally. It's about how they feel right now, dealing with the emotions that are swirling inside of Black America every day. And today is even more special because the questions that I'm asking come from our bigger supporters. Today's questions all come from Black women who simply care about and are concerned for the health and safety of Black men. So, on today's episode of Wild Black, I want to introduce Aaron, Dan, Detavio, and Ronell. Now, I'm not going to turn the mic over to each one of them to tell you much more about themselves because we'll be here all night. These brothers are accomplished. They do all type of stuff. But what is important is not what they do, but how they feel. So, our dope quotes are going to be intact today. We are not doing Wild Black shit. I'm going to kick this episode off with my dope quote. Every brother here will have their own quote that they will share, but mine is the foundation for Wild Black. You've heard it before, and for me, it's never been more relevant. My quote is by James Baldwin, and it goes as such. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. I chose that one not just because it's the basis for the entire podcast of Wild Black, but because it is truly how I feel right now. I'm conscious to what's going on. I'm educated. I'm smart. And I cannot help but to be rageful. I cannot help but to be angry. And I need some place to put that anger. So with that, I want to ask Mr. Detavio to share his dope quote. And we'll have a very brief conversation about that. Brother, it's all yours.
Thank you, brother. My quote is actually a little bit different. Back in August of 2015, Karen O'Mayo, amazing dope Black woman, creative, led a team to launch a cover for Ebony. This cover had no pictures, no visuals, no people like most magazine covers do. Instead, it just had these words: America loves Black people. What people was crossed out and replaced with culture. And so the idea is that America loves Black culture, but not Black people. That quote capitalizes how I feel in this moment.
Yeah, I can feel that completely. You see us in every aspect of American culture, but you don't always see us in American culture. We fuel it. Brothers, any thoughts on DeTavio's quote?
Can I build to that?
Absolutely.
Just to build, I think it's more than that too. I mean, it's everything you hear my brother saying and more. It's the fact that white America and honestly the rest of America, they love our culture. They appropriate it, right? They use it every day in their everyday life. They will even go so far as when they find something they like to outwardly steal it, take it as their own, rock it, wear it, sing it. Depending on, what it is. But then in a situation like this, or this, these several, tragedies that have happened where Black people have been murdered, you don't hear anything from them. They're silent. You don't see them respond with the same sort of engagement that they do when they have the time to appropriate our culture. So I just think, enough is enough.
I feel you on that.
Yeah.
I feel you on that. Aaron, you got any thoughts, man?
Yeah. I mean, this one is like, this is just 100. I mean, you see it, at every music award where, they praise like, our rappers, right? But then if they were to see those very same people walking in the neighborhood, they would clench their purses. But, I think one thing that really bothered me from a couple years ago was when I forget the Fox News anchor who, the woman who told LeBron to shut up and dribble,
right?
Like that really rubbed me the wrong way. When you think about like how much like athletes have, they want us to sort of like stay in that realm, right? But I mean, we have so much more to contribute. Athletes have so much more to contribute because of their platform. And, to me, like Muhammad Ali, the greatest to ever do it. And if you think otherwise, that's a whole different, conversation that we can have, but I'll fight you over that. But Muhammad Ali's, his greatest accomplishment weren't like how many people he knocked down, but how many people he woke up. You know what I mean? So like once he took the stand against no, I'm not going to Vietnam to shoot and kill people who look like me when I can't even get love from you in my own country, right? And so once he said that, like people started to wake up, and so like he just like empowered a generation, to where. Yeah, they want Muhammad Ali to keep knocking out other brothers, but they don't want him to do anything else, more than that. So they love the culture. They love the stuff that we bring for entertainment value. But when we try to step outside of our, out of the ring in that situation, or off the court or off the field, they don't like that anymore. So 100%, Octavio, agree with you, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. And for me, it's like, I don't understand how you can love the product without loving the creator, right? And it's confusing, right? How do you explain to young Black men coming up how people, not just in the US, but globally, our culture is the culture that trades at the highest levels, right? We are a global culture. And globally, right, this says, America doesn't love Black people, but across the world, people in China right now, Black folks being ostracized and kicked out of their hotels and kicked out of their places. So I'm super confused about how the world can love the product that we can create, yet hate us so much.
Yeah. So it's interesting you all brought up a lot of the same kind of themes about the way we've been treated both here and globally. So that's going to lead me into my very first question, right? So how are you all processing what's happening and how are you doing mentally?
Yeah. It's weird, right? So I'm not the type to prepare, but I had a conversation with one of my boys just to kind of let my thoughts kind of creep out. And his first response was, I'm numb. And my response is, I'm not numb. Like this one hurts and this one is heartbreaking. Both of these cases are specifically heartbreaking. So I started trying to figure out, why am I not numb? Because I think a lot of people are growing numb because we've all seen this play out. We're not numb to the murder of Black bodies, but we're numb to the fact that we know that Black men get murdered and then nothing happens, right? And so you kind of give up on the process. So then why is this one so hard for me? And I think the reality for me is that I can't believe this is happening during COVID season. Like in a time when everybody is supposed to stay in the house, in a time when everybody is supposed to shelter at home and be safe. The only reason we're allowed outside is to run to the grocery store and take a jog and be healthy. I don't quite understand how even in this season, our lives are worth nothing. Even in this season, white men will come hunt us. Even in this season, police officers will shoot us and laugh. And this one hurts more because even in this season, we're still despised and hated. And I don't understand that.
Yeah, a time when we are supposed to be banding together to survive this and to thrive through it and to figure out what the new normal is. We are still being targeted. We can't get along when we can't even go outside. It's a tough feeling. Ronell, brother, how are you processing this, man?
That's a good question. One of the things that came to mind when I, saw the news this week and been hearing about, everything that's been happening. And for me, the processing of it is, I love the word numb, but I think I'm just emotionless now, right? When I see that emotionless, like I'm drained. Thinking through all what we've seen over the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, where you see this happening day after day, it just makes you just cringe, and you're thinking to yourself, like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm frustrated because, I'm having to tell my kids about what they have to be careful of. Yeah, and I have mixed race kids, but they will always be seen as Black, right? And so having to tell them what's going on in the world around us and why I'm concerned for them and why I want them to, act respectfully. And so it sounds weird, but I feel like I'm drained of my emotions. Yeah. I feel like I've been tapped out. Yeah. And I can't let, the result of that is I'm mad, I'm frustrated, and I'm just completely upset. Yet I want to make sure that my kids know that there's an appropriate way to do this. And how do we do this? How do we let our voices be heard so that they don't continue to be diminished?
Yeah. It's when you bring the children into it, man, it adds a level of complexity that I really struggle with. And I don't want to go too far down this path yet, because I want to get both Ronell and Aaron's response. But the moment you bring children into it, it puts me in a mindset of, how do we teach our children to be fearless when we're fearful, right? And that's something that I find myself dealing with all the time, because I want to raise 2 children who are proud of who they are. They're proud of what they look like. They are not scared to take on the world in any capacity. And it is really hard to do that when at the same time, I'm scared to let them leave my house. Personal story for me. Every day when I leave work, I leave at 3 o'clock as opposed to 5 or 6 like we normally would. And I leave at 3 because I live in what to most people is considered a nice, safe neighborhood. I live in a suburb of Atlanta on the north side. It's high income, great schools. It's diverse, but my neighborhood, I think I'm one of 2 Black folks in it. But I leave my job every day at 3 o'clock so I can make it to my children's bus stops by 3:45, so I can pick my daughter up and then wait for my son so that I can drive them home, because it bothers me to my core to allow them to walk down this main street and through my neighborhood, because I am fearful that the police are going to pull them over. That's something that I deal with every day. I talk specifically about my son. He's 14 years old, but at the same time, he's 6'2", 227 pounds. And from the back, he looks like a grown man. And all I can think about is Tamir Rice looked like a kid, and they still murdered him in like 3 seconds. So what chance does my 6'2", 200 plus, young, Black, intelligent, kind son really have if I'm not there to deflect those bullets when they come? I know that side, brother.
Oh my goodness. I mean, bros, I just feel so much right now. I keep cycling through what I'm going to just kind of term as a range of emotions of being angry, tired, disturbed, distraught, emotionally troubled, right? And even mentally and just spiritually exhausted. And I just feel like somehow even all of that just doesn't adequately describe and capture how frustrated I feel. I'm just beyond perplexed, and my whole soul just, feels the total sum of that right now. And I think, as my brothers have, you all have stated, I think I'm at this place where I just really, I grow increasingly wary of my ability to live and exist in this country. I've served this country. I'm a United States Marine. I have long sort of stood up for, or you sort of loved the fact that America is this sort of melting pot of different, ethnicities and people of different backgrounds, and, have held on to the hope that we can all coexist peacefully together, and have wanted to be a part of a change agent to believe that, while the past has been dark and the past has, been hard, there's a way forward, and we just need to keep being the change we seek and responding sort of in this, resilient way. And I'm at a point where, my core beliefs have been shaken to where I am barely holding on. I'm holding on by a thread right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm scared, and I want to say I can take action so that this doesn't ever happen again, right? Ahmaud Arbery, Tamir Rice, or, Philando Castile, no one else should be killed ever again. And I want to be able to say that, but I can't say that. And that's sad, and that scares me.
Yeah. I think that's a series of emotions that I assume the majority of Black men in America are dealing with. And that's why episodes like this are so important, because we have now thousands of listeners. And one thing that I want them to walk away from this episode with, it is okay to feel the way you feel, right? No one can tell you how you should feel and how you should react to the things that we have to see, consume, and live with every single day. That doesn't mean you don't need to get help, because I think a lot of us probably should be getting help. I'm a firm believer in being proactive in our mental health, in our mental care. And for me, this is a wake-up call that we all need to be more active in that space. I won't go there right now. But Aaron, how are you doing, brother? What's going on with you?
I remember when something like this happened when I was working for one of the companies in Silicon Valley, and we had a Black employee resource group discussion about it, to kind of express our feelings, get them out there. And I remember specifically at that time, like we had our white allies in the room, and I remember at that time, what I was looking for was empathy, right? Like I wanted them to put themselves in our shoes, and like cry with us, right?
Right.
I didn't see a lot of that, but that's what I was looking for. Then, unfortunately, of course, this happened again. I was working at a different Silicon Valley company, and we had another Black employee resource group plus allies. And I remember at that time I was looking for understanding. So, like, I was looking for not more emotional things, but like more something like, look, like, do you see that this is wrong? Like, can you guys see past the dehumanization of what Fox News or somebody might be trying to show, and see that this is wrong, right? Like, can you just see that? Today, I wrote a note to my team that I manage here, and there was no seeking empathy. there was no, hoping for understanding. To be honest, like, there was just rage.
Yeah.
There was, it was profanity laced, and, that's not me. But I felt like I needed to be authentic, because otherwise I'd just be, fooling myself, and, kind of like not being real with them. And so, at the end of it, I just signed off. I was like, I'm tired. I'm just tired. Like I'm really just exhausted. I'm tired of like having to wake up every day and feeling like I have to fight just for my right to exist, just to breathe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that could be taken from me at any moment. And so, I feel like I've gone through this path of like, the 1964, Martin giving a speech, I have a dream speech, or 64, and then, to 1968, mountains, I've been to the mountaintop, Mount Martin, where, he was a lot more angry, and, he had sort of like gone through this transition himself,
Right.
where he felt like, maybe the peaceful path wasn't working as well. And so, he needed to scream a little bit louder. And so
the Martin that felt he might have led his people into a burning house.
Exactly right. And and I'm tired of that, man. I'm tired of it. Like, I don't know what, like we've marched a lot. We ran 2.23 miles, today, what are we going to do the next time, somebody becomes a hashtag, like, I don't want this to be a social media trend. Like, I want this to stop. You know what I mean? I don't want any more hashtags.
Yeah.
And so, that just, it just has me exhausted, man. Exhausted.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Aaron, I feel completely the same. I think I feel stuck. So as a leader, and what I say in business all the time is like, look, there's a lot of hard problems and a lot of hard challenges, and I shy away from none of them as long as I can see line of sight on how to get to the win. And this is one of those problems where I have zero line of sight on how to get to the win. And that is so frustrating for me. So anyway, I just want to say, I feel your sentiment to my core.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a tough place to be. When you're the type of person who is used to building your way to the answer, it's a hard place to be.
That's right.
When neither can you build your way to the answer or even see an answer. That's really, really tough. But while we're talking about the path,
wait, can I just say one more thing to that?
Please.
What you just said, I think, like, building on what you and Detavio just said, and then like linking that back to, I think, what Ronell was just saying about his kid. Like, Ronell is, the king of his household, right? His kids look up to him to have all the answers. And so a situation like this where Ronell does not have the answer, it's like, hey, Dad, this won't happen to me, right? And, they're literally expecting. Because I remember when I don't have kids yet, but I remember my dad was Superman to me. Like, he knew everything. You know what I mean? Like nothing could happen to me. I could walk out in the middle of the street with a bus coming, and my dad was going to save me, even if he was downtown.
Yeah.
But for Ronell to have to look his kid in the eye, or you to have to look yours in the eye and say, I don't know. I'm going to do the best I can, but I don't know. Like, that's got to be a tough position, you know?
So there's a framework that, I use all the time at work. I've been using it with my the folks that I work with all the time right now in this COVID season, which is CIA: control, influence, and essentially accept and let go. Right. And so the idea is really simple. You figure out what you can control, your behaviors, your mood, your attitude, and you focus on those. You figure out what you can influence, other people's behaviors, and you focus on those. But the stuff that you can't control or influence, you just have to accept. And the thing is, with this, I don't control it. I don't feel like I can influence it, but I also refuse to accept it. And so then it's like this amazing kind of like paradox or conundrum, because I don't want to just accept this. I want to figure out how to make a change.
Yeah.
Amen to that. I guess how I feel with that is I was thinking about like our ancestors, right? Those before us, even recently, of like, did they ever have to feel, this? And, we all know that they did. And I think I just, while our lives have been better, like, I'm so thankful for the success I've been able to achieve, what I have in life, what I've been able to do. I guess I finally feel like I get it. Like, in terms of the frustration, I'm thinking about 1950 and what our ancestors in the civil rights movement had to feel, what they had to feel like when, they were being, beaten, maimed, killed, left and right, different situations, marching, trying to just, again, fight for the right to just be able to exist. And while to a degree we've had some successes, and again, our lives have improved in some ways, it just feels like that this is just reductive, that we haven't moved on, that somehow it's almost like a false sense of, security, or a false sense of that the world has changed. I just feel so naive right now, and I think that I think I've mentioned it. Like I'm questioning everything that I believed about what the future will look like as a Black man.
Yeah.
As for my family, as you all have mentioned.
Yeah. So coming from that point, right, about 1950 versus today, and yeah, we're in a better place in some aspects, and in others, I don't think we've made that much progress. But the question I want to ask is, do you feel comfortable as a Black man in America today? And Ronell, I'd love to start with you, brother.
And that's a solid question. And, when I think about it, some of you guys know me, right? And I grew up in Europe. And so when I came to America, I think of Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall when I think of that. But, when I came to America in 1996 for the second time, I just remember my first experience of moving to America when I first moved from Germany. So the second time I moved from England, the first time I remember moving, I remember having this experience when I went out to the mailbox to get the mail for my family. And when I got to the mailbox, I saw this sticker on it, and it had these 3 letters on it. And I was like, why would somebody put a sticker on my mailbox? I ran back into my house, give the mail to my parents, and I said, Mom, there's a sticker on our mailbox with 3 letters on it, KKK. And I just remember my mom and seeing the panic on her face and seeing her worry and frustration, right? And then 2 years later, we leave the country. We're in England. And England and Germany have their own challenges. And the reason I bring all this up is I have not felt more unsafe in my life than anywhere than living in America. Even living in Germany, where I grew up in a small town of about 250, we were the only Black family there. And we all know what happened in Germany with Hitler and what he was trying to do. But these people, when I go back, I was there last summer. They love me. They welcome me in, invite me to their parties, and want me to stay up until all hours of the night. But when I come to it, since I've been back in America, I feel like I have to always check my shoulder. I feel like I have to act in a certain way. And if I don't act in a certain way, then yep, there he is, right? There's that Black guy again. There he is doing what we know he will do. Yeah. And that code switching, we all know it. We all talk about it. And I don't feel like I can be myself, right? We hear a lot of that too in business. Like, hey, bring your full self to work. Well, why can't I bring my full self to my community? Why can't I bring my full self to church? Why can't I bring my full, where am I allowed to be my full self?
Yeah. I often wonder, when they tell me to bring my full self, do you say it because it sounds good, or do you truly mean it? Because I don't trust it when you tell me that. I feel like the moment I do, I'm in HR's office because I've made someone uncomfortable.
Yep. It's a buzzword, man. That's a buzzword.
Yeah. Dan, what are you feeling, man? How comfortable are you as a Black man in America today?
I mean, not at all. And, you talking about, Ronell, I love what you said, don't be too authentic though, right? Because the minute you start being too authentic, just like you said, you'll end up in HR's office. I'm without words right now. Like, I think that when I think about how I'm feeling as a Black man in America right now, all my hope is gone. I mean, I know it will be restored. I'm a man of faith. I believe in God. And I hold on to my faith. But I'm at a moment right now where I feel like I really need to go into prayer and really get some answers, because everything that like I said, I just have believed about life and just where we were and where we are and where we were headed. I just don't believe it anymore. I think that this country, and I also think that this country has always had these issues. I think the ugly underbelly of America, it's always been there. We just have ignored it, have dealt with it. But I'm tired of it, But again, what do we do? It really becomes about, for me, what are the solutions as a community that we, what are the things that we can do to protect ourselves, to stay safe? I mean, I believe that, yes, there will be those who will be allies and who you can get along with in this nation and who will support the cause that Black Lives Matter, that we do deserve the same rights and should be able to live just as they do. But I believe that there will always be people, there will always be the big Michaels out there. There will always be those who want to, who don't believe we have the right to exist.
Right.
And, what do I tell? I don't have kids yet either, but what do I tell my kids? Or what do I tell my nephew, who's 7 and 8? And, do I instill the same naiveness that, or naivete that I had growing up as a kid? Or, do I just have a real conversation with him around, be careful because, these people, some of them cannot be trusted.
Yeah, it turns into, do you take their childhood and allow them to understand the truth? Or do you give them the space to be a kid, have fun, and not have to worry about those stresses?
Exactly right. Because I want them to believe that the world can be a better place, right? I do want them to think that their future will be brighter. But what am I lying to, my nieces and nephews? Yeah. I think partially I would be.
Yeah, it feels like that. Aaron, brother, what are your thoughts on that?
I just want to jump in real quick before Aaron responds. Give me a second here, Aaron.
Yeah.
But I love what Dan said, man. In terms of, I'm a Christian, I'm a God-fearing man, and I believe, that we all have value, right? In my mind, I think that's an important thing, and I think that's what gives me power every day to kind of continue to drive forward. Because one of the things that Dan said that stood out to me was, how do we solve this? What's the solution? And when he said that, it made me think, well, man, I love everybody. I try to love everybody around me and try to treat them with respect and with kindness that I feel that I would want to receive and what I feel I should be giving to them. But it can't just be a one-sided venture, right? It can't just be a one-sided solution-oriented approach, if you will, since we're all in business and we kind of know how that goes. It has to be people coming together. And that's my worry, and I have that hope deep down. And I just keep hoping that we can latch arms and try to figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree, man. And, the question was about being uncomfortable. And when I think about times when I've been uncomfortable, it's always been because I've done something wrong. All right. When I was a shorty, I might have eaten a cookie when my mama told me not to. I might have, done something, right, that made me uncomfortable because somebody was going to find out. But, thank, God above, man, I was born Black, man. So I'm comfortable with who I am, right? And so, that's definitely not changing. There's nothing else that I'd rather be. Being Black is a blessing. Not to say that it doesn't come without its challenges, right? But by the grace of God, He made me Black. He made me in his skin. He gave me this road to walk. And so I'm comfortable with that. And we got so many examples of just beautiful Black people doing beautiful Black things. I love that, man. I'm comfortable with that, and I want to see more of it. And if I'm just going to be honest, we're better at basketball. We're better at football. We're better at golf. We're better at baseball. We're better at tennis. We're better at boxing. We're better at business. So if I'm keeping it 100, I'm comfortable with who I am. What I want is for them to be comfortable with who I am. I think that's what the problem is. It's not us. It's them.
I feel you on that.
I love that. First of all, I want everybody to know that he just said Black folks are better at business. Boom. I just want to catch that. But I think you're right. Again, when it comes back to, control, influence, whatever, and how I feel stuck, the reality is it's nothing I think Black people can do to solve the problem, right? It's in other people's hands. Do I ever feel safe? I think as a Black man, you can never feel safe in America. Now, I would say I feel safer probably than 90% of us, right? Given what I've accomplished and what people see in the spaces that I'm in. Mm-hmm. But do I ever feel safe? No, because the world has showed us you can be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be anybody and still get pulled over and still get mishandled and still get assaulted and still get shot. So I never feel comfortable, but I spend my life trying to make white people comfortable with me, right? So I've spent, the bulk of my career working in Black spaces, Black companies, going into white spaces, right? And trying to teach them about Black excellence and all we bring to the table. Every time I go to the airport, I'm in hoodie and sweats and all of that. And I let all the white people jump in front of me. And then when they call first class, I walk in front of all of them and go,
Damn.
see? Like,
Come on.
right? So like entire life, they just don't judge a book by its cover, right? Like treat me for the man that I am. But again, to your point, that's not a lesson I can force on people. Like folks got to get the lesson.
Yeah. Hey,
Yep.
I like how that made me feel inside. I started glowing from the
first class.
inside
Man.
out.
Man.
All right, so I love the fact, one, I agree with everything you said. And the beautiful thing here is we can feel a way and still understand why someone feels slightly different, because ultimately we're still talking about the same thing, just from different perspectives. But I want to take it a step further, right? Knowing how we feel about being Black in America, but at the same time, being forced in one sense of the word to constantly see and consume people who look just like us being mistreated, being murdered, and then on top of that, to not have justice served. So with all that is happening, with everything that's happening right now, are your views on your personal mortality different? And Dan, I want to start with you.
Gosh, my views on my personal mortality. Maybe I shouldn't drive, because if I drive, I could get pulled over, and I don't want to get pulled over. So maybe I will take an Uber or a Lyft. Like, I do feel like I have started to truly modify my behavior so that I remain safe. And now I think that whether it's conscious or unconscious, I think that I'm going to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to die.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that's really what, is at the core of that. And what's really sad is that we as Black men specifically, we have to go through this mental anguish and mental mind games to really ask ourselves, is it safe for me to do things that are basic and honestly things that they don't have to think about?
Yeah.
White people don't have to think about that, but
Absolutely.
we do.
It's funny, you talk about the things that we do strategically to stay alive. Every single time I get in my car now, I take my wallet from my back pocket and I put it on the door. And that's so that
I do the same thing.
In case I do get pulled over, I don't have to reach behind my back for any reason. If he needs my wallet, we'll open the door so he can see where it is. I want to be safe. And I have now begun to live my life in a way that I am always thinking about, how do I maximize my chances of coming home today alive? I feel like I'm at war and I don't even own a gun, right? Every time I leave,
Agreed.
I'm truly concerned about what could happen. I'm constantly watching for police. I'm constantly watching for the random person who looks like he could be a danger to me. And let's be very, very, very fair. Michael Moore talked about the fact that the most dangerous man on the street is not the brother coming at you, but the white man in the suit who really has control of your ability to earn a living, right? That's who can fire you. That's who can lay you off, right? Holistically speaking. So with that, Aaron, man, where are you at with your mortality, man? How does this stuff make you really check yourself and think about your life and your ability to survive?
Yeah, I mean, I think DeTavio said it earlier, man. Like, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a famous athlete, and you can still catch a bullet from a racist cop or, a community cop or whoever, right? And so, when I'm walking down the street, they don't see my bachelor's degree from one of the top undergrad, business schools. They don't see my MBA from one of the top, business schools in the country. They don't see my resume that contains some of the best companies in the world, all Fortune 50. They see a Black kid that looks like he probably, is from the south side of Chicago, because I am, And, I don't hide that. I think one of the things I joke with my wife a lot, like I got a lot of education, but I don't think I ever got that, like, that finishing, you know what I mean? Cause like that South Side comes out, bro. That South
You ain't got that polish. You missing that polish.
I'm missing it, bro. I'm missing it, man. I never got it. You know what I mean? And so, I used to walk through Walmart with a little bit of a limp, man, because that's what the pimps in the hood did, man. So, that's what it is. But
and it was a smooth
so
limp too, so it was great.
bro. You know what I mean? So, but they don't see, they only see that. And it only takes a split second, right? A split second for my life to end and the story to change. And what's sad is that I've actually had to think beyond my own death and think about what will they say about me. Like I actually have thought about like, and like been careful on social media. Like I don't even post anything anymore, but making sure that there's nothing about on with me, like with the do-rag on, like nothing that Fox News can post and be like, oh, this is the person that they killed, so that like it can pacify white American, like, oh yeah, if I saw this person coming at me, then that would scare me too. So I get it. Self-defense, no, man, so like it's sad when you have to think beyond your own death to be like, man, what is Fox News going to be able to say about me? So, yes, I've definitely thought about my own mortality. Like I live in a neighborhood that's less than 0.05% Black. Like it's just basically just me, my wife, and like one other couple somewhere down the street. That live. Actually, it's Boris Kojo and Nicole Ari Parker. So like it's us and them. You know what I mean? And so
that sounds like you in a good neighborhood, brother.
It's a pretty decent one. I like it.
I'm here to confirm it. It is. I've been there.
Like I love it, but that doesn't stop a bullet. You know what I mean? From piercing my skin, from sending my wife into mourning, and my child, hopefully that'll be born in December if all goes well. From not having a dad. So I'm thinking, and I don't want. The thing is, going back to Ronell, because I've met his kids and they are like beautiful, and like, what do you say? Like, what do you say to a kid who doesn't have Superman anymore?
Yeah.
In their life. So, I don't want my kid to one day turn on the TV and accidentally turn to Fox and see a picture of me with a do-rag on or whatever. Not that should even matter, but like, I don't want them to be like, oh yeah, that was your dad. He deserved it. Like,
you don't want to give them any ammunition to change who you really are for the sake of the narrative.
Exactly.
You don't.
Exactly.
You don't, right? But you don't want that to happen. But at the same time, you don't want to diminish yourself. You don't want to diminish your child's confidence.
That's right.
You don't want to diminish your child's,
you're right.
Ability to be bold and be brave when they're in a boardroom or in the courtroom or on the court or wherever they are, to feel like they can't be themselves, that they can't act or be, make decisions or do the same things and move with the same freedom or move in the same movement, right, that their peers do.
Yeah. You said something earlier that I wanted to jump in on and I forgot it. So I'm going to jump in on this point about like being able to be our freest selves. So as it comes to my mortality, my truth is I don't think about it constantly. I think it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about having modified my spaces. And so I work at a Black company. I make enough money. I live in New York. I never drive. I'm always in Ubers. I think if I was driving, it would make me feel a lot differently, actually. I'm actually probably relatively afraid of what it means to be a Black man driving all of the time. That seems to be a consistent place that trouble happens. Yeah. But anyways, like I'm able to modify my spaces. I go to the same restaurants where they know my name, right? All of these things. But I've been in this place for maybe the last 2 or 3 years where I've been fully focused on being my freest self. as free as I can possibly be. And I realized I tweeted the other day, having money is an unfair advantage. Like I was broke, I was poor, I was homeless, I was all of that. So I've earned everything I have. And now that I got a little money, I'm like, this stuff ain't fair. Like the stuff that it does for you and buys for you and allows you to do. And so the connection back to Dan's point is, as I am being my freest self in this position, I've actually had to become conscious about who's watching me, because then people who maybe don't have the same title or who don't have the same level of access or maybe who don't have the same funds to free themselves if something happens are modeling my behavior and the freedom. And it can be very dangerous, right? The life that I'm living, right? I'm walking into every company and corporate space in sneakers and a t-shirt and jeans. In every Uber and like I said, in every airport and hoodies, et cetera. I watch people model it and they don't get the same opportunity that I do. And so I realized that my freedom and being my freest self can actually be a detriment for other people who are trying to follow. And I'm quite conflicted about what that means. I want to be free and I want to demonstrate what it means to be a free Black man, but not at the expense of other people who might try to model that same behavior, but don't yet have the permission, unfortunately, to be that free, if that makes any sense.
Man, it does. It does. And it takes me to a place where it's like you've built yourself and your career to a point where in corporate America's mind, you've earned the ability to be much more authentic. But at the same time, we all as leaders strive to be an example for those that are beside us, behind us, beneath us, if you will, at times. But we have to be so careful with the example we set, because what you just said demonstrates that point that you've achieved something. And if they attempt to emulate what you now are, they can shortchange themselves before they ever have an opportunity to become the next Ottavio.
That's right. I'm working at Black companies, helping Black creatives and Black genius monetize the culture that we create. So I'm walking in the white spaces, reflecting the culture that they expect to see walk in the door. That's very different if you're going to work every day at Unilever or Walmart or J&J, right? Like it's a different world. And so if you don't have the context, you don't understand the freedom, the space that allows me to walk in the freedom that I'm walking in.
Yeah, yeah. Ronell, brother, what are you thinking about mortality? Where are you at?
I've always penciled in 5 things that are key for me. You know, first, for me, my spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health, that for my family, my religious beliefs, my community, and then work. And I prioritize those things in that order because everything that comes before work, those first 4 things, are where I think I'm focused on. But when I'm at work, I prioritize that, and it gives me an opportunity to support the other 4 areas. And I bring that up is because for me, I've realized if I want to be in a space where I can feel like I can give and make this world a better place, I have to see my mortality being more than what they're exposing to me. I can't let what they're showcasing around me and what they're doing to my brothers across America be what I think I'm going to become. Because then they win. They win that mental game in my mind, and they take away my hope. And I can't let that happen. And that's important to me. That's critical for my foundation. So I have to believe like, hey, I have value. I know what I can do. I know what I can bring to the table. And I have to focus on those areas, or else I feel like, hey, I've lost. I'm a dead man walking.
And that was honestly beautiful, brother.
Yeah, and I feel like I live that similar life. So I always say people care about believing the right story. And I don't care about believing the right story. I care about believing the story that allows me to be right. Right? That allows me to wake up every day and be productive and function and give to my family and give to the company that I work at. And so it doesn't matter whether the story is true or not in everybody else's mind. It just has to be true so that I can be effective and productive. And so it's important that I write a story and believe a story that doesn't have me living in fear 24/7, because that would lead me to a place where I'm not able to accomplish the stuff that I feel like I'm put on this earth to accomplish.
100%, Ottavio, 100%.
And I love that.
I love that.
Some stuff. Go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, I'm getting this knowledge right now. I think, what Ronell said, and even the bill that Ottavio had, it is so important that we really, understand the story that we tell ourselves every day. and that we really make sure that we own that story and that story serves us well. I've really spent the time, over the past couple of years, making sure that I really, have worked on my thoughts and how I see myself, how I think about myself. And I just think that what I'm questioning and grappling with and struggling with right now is how this will play into all of that, because the last thing you want is to lose the mental game, Brunel, as you said. But I mean, at the same time, I think it's okay for people to feel how they feel right now. And so I think there will be a lot of healing, a lot of therapy, and the need for therapeutic sort of reconciliation here for us as we move forward, because it's not easy. And so anyway, I love what you guys said. That's dope.
Yeah. So we've talked. Go ahead, brother.
I want to build on that a little bit too. And I know we haven't gotten to, others' quotes yet, but I feel like I should drop in mine right now because I feel like it might be appropriate. I was going through a lot of different ones that I could think of, but there's a motto actually, and it's not really a quote, but it's a motto that I feel like I want to live by, and I have been trying to live by. And it's actually, and Aaron, you might love this. It's the North Carolina State motto, which is not NC State, but the state.
Good.
Yeah. but it's to be rather than to seem, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, I've always told myself, I want to be who God wants me to be. I want to be who I know I can be. And I can't let anybody else push me to seem like something. And what I mean by that, I can't push anybody to help me, put me in a space where it's like, you are this. You are what we see, what we hope that we see on TV or what we project on TV. You are, what we tell people you are on the newspaper. We are what we hear in, the music that we hear as well. It's like, no, I am who I am. And that's okay. And I'm going to be this way. I'm going to be respectful, but I'm going to be who I'm going to be because I know that's who I am.
I love that too, man. So we've talked a lot about how we feel and the emotions that we're dealing with. And what I'm hearing, the sentiment that I hear and see coming back from Black America, and when you sit in the chair that I sit in right now, I get a lot of it. I get a ton of emails, ton of direct messages, social posts. I hear how Black America feels. And it almost goes back to the perceived positions of Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? And we know that both of their positions began to evolve much closer to each other than most people really understand, or most narratives will allow to preach, because that would be too much unity, right? But what I'm hearing come back from Black America, and I believe this myself, is that the only way that we will see change, the only way that we can create change inside of the people who oppress us, inside of the people who hold us back, and honestly have been lynching and murdering us, is by three ways, right? We begin to impact their life, we begin to impact their freedom, or we begin to impact their finances. And we spend a lot of time as a collective community talking about how do we do those things. We boycott here to impact finances. We march and protest to impact freedoms. In this case, it led to the arrest, albeit extremely late, right? And personally, I am anti-violence for the most part, right? I am not about you punch me in the face, I want to go beat you completely down. But I would be lying if I did not say that with the continued abuse that we see, the continued consumption of people who look just like us being mistreated, if I weren't honest and say someplace inside of me, I do begin to feel that desire to create that same pain on the other side of the fence. So the question I want to ask you all is, where are you at personally with retaliation? And what does revolution look like? And I want to start with you, Aaron.
Oh, man. So I'm nonviolent, right? Like, I don't own a gun. Although I will be honest and say that, and I'm anti-gun because I've seen what it's done to friends, of mine on the south side of Chicago. In fact, my very best friend in the world since I was in diapers, literally in diapers, was shot and killed, shot in the head last year.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry about that, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, man. So like, I've been anti-gun my entire life, but this is the first time in my life where I've like thought about like, man, I got a wife to protect, a pregnant wife to protect, and hopefully a child on the way. If something goes down, like, I can't throw like, my Cuisinart like butter knives at them. You know what I mean? Like I got some really nice.
Here's some seasoning sauce.
First of all, you know what I mean?
Brand specific here. Brand specific.
You know what I'm saying? Hey, I can't throw my I used to carry cookware at them, but like it's it could be So I've been thinking about that, but in terms of retaliation, I don't like. Violence for violence, I don't think it necessarily is going to do anything. Like it releases some short-term frustration and anger, sure, right? But I don't think that that's the answer, right? Like that's not a long-term solution. But I love what you laid out. So I want to go to that because I think that that's part of what I would say is my retaliation plan, and I've been talking about it for a while. For Black people to think that we're going to get reparations, even though we all deserve those things, like, cause if you get like, 400 years of free labor, like, I mean, like that's anybody can get rich off of that, right? If you don't have to, like, labor is the biggest line item, you know what I mean? Right? On anybody's P&L, right? If you don't have to pay for that, like, you're good. So, like we are owed something from that, but like for in our lifetime, it's likely not going to happen. But you said, number one, impact their life. 2, impact their freedom. 3, impact their finances. I would argue that if you did 3, it impacts 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do you do that? Right. So how do you impact their finances? Imagine if Kobe, Michael, Bron, like Zion. Imagine if Zion didn't go to Duke and he went to North Carolina Central. Imagine if Kobe went to Florida A&M. Like imagine if we were to like put those dollars. Imagine if, and I'm gonna because I went to Florida A&M, so I can't imagine any other HBCU winning a national championship. But like, imagine if Florida A&M had the basketball history that UNC has. Imagine if because basketball is UNC's chief revenue driver, right? And so imagine, and that's how they get their resources to fund all of their other research and programs and attract the best professors, blah, 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 blah. Imagine if we did that at these HBCUs, right? Imagine if we, Kobe, Bron, imagine if we built the Fab Five, the top 5 recruits every year, who are, by the way, always Black. You know what I mean? Like probably the top 100, are us. You know what I mean? And so imagine if they went to the HBCUs. Imagine now if the Sweet 16 was all HBCUs. Wow. Imagine if who is it? ABC who hosts the March Madness. Imagine if those revenue dollars were flowing to HBCUs now, right? Imagine if HBCUs were now to have the funding to have the best medical schools, funding to have the best. We already have some of the greatest business schools, but like the best CIS programs, the best whatever programs, right? Imagine if we were the highly sought after universities, and imagine a product now that comes out of that, right? Like, you don't have people saying, oh, I went to Harvard. You have people saying, oh, I went to FAMU. And I do that anyway, by the way. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, I went to FAMU. By the way, I went to FAMU. But imagine if you had that, at a more global scale. Imagine if you had white people trying to kick in the door at FAMU, trying to get in to be students, because this is where all the best professors are. This is where all the people who are like CEOs of top companies are. Like, this is where you have to go. So imagine if we did that, right? That sort of empowers us more, right? So now, all of a sudden, the chiefs at all these organizations look like me. We start to change the narrative. We start to say, oh, wow, my boss is Black. Maybe this guy walking down the street that looks like he's from the South Side of Chicago, maybe he's not so bad.
Yeah.
Like maybe he's not actually trying to kill me, because I know 50 people who went to the same school as this kid or look just like this kid. And they're all in positions way above me. So I think that, retaliation is not going to come from violence, because they got guns too. Retaliation is going to come from like impacting the thing that's going to impact the other things in their life, and that's their finances.
Yeah, I love that. Datavio, man, I'd love to hear what you think. And then Ronell and Dan, I'm going to come to you on the next question because of time. But Datavio, please, brother, break down your thoughts on retaliation and revolution.
Yeah, so first let me just say I'm a man of God, and I start there. But today I'm pissed. So ask me in a week of prayer, and like my answer might change. I'm sure it'll change, and I'll be operating from a position of love and grace. I don't know if y'all saw that picture of whatever that Black senator is in Michigan that had the 3 Black people with rifles escorting her into whatever there's a part of me that was like, it's about time.
I'm with
now,
you.
I'm also fearful of what that means, like, especially in this time of COVID and hurricanes and whatever deadly hornets over here, like the world feels crazy. But like, I was looking at that going, yes, that's exactly what needs to happen. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be a winning strategy, right? I don't know if you guys saw, who was it? Shannon Brown, who just got arrested, the basketball player, right? Who just got arrested for firing his rifle at 2 people
that came
in his house. Right? So you arrested this man for shooting people in his house, but it took y'all weeks, months to arrest 2 white dudes who chased somebody down and hunted them. So I know that if we go down that 74 days, right? So I know if we go down that path, we're still gonna lose, but there's a part of me that's like, you know what? Let's just see what happens. But realistically, like, there's only one, and I don't even know that this works, but there's only one solution that I potentially have, and we're not in position to do that right now. But the people who I think have done this, the disenfranchised, marginalized group who hasn't experienced what we experienced in terms of like murder. Well, they have. That's not fair to say. But I think the queer community. Yeah. So when I look at their strategy, at least in my book, there's a lot of people in Hollywood who are members of that community, and they are greenlighting projects and making sure that we are inserting people who are lesbian, gay, or whatever from the LGBTQ community into every single series, every single movie. And what that starts to do is normalize queerness, right? And so that strategy, I think, has been a working strategy. Trust me, I believe they've got much more work to go, and they may only be like half as far as, they need to be. But the idea of like, if you guys started from zero through the media and the constant pictures that are put into our faces, you normalize it. And so, I see Blackness as something that people fear. It needs to be normalized. And so the only strategy that I see that's worked for a marginalized group is that. But to do that, you need more Black people in media, not at Black media, but at media with scale, with green light power, who can insert the right types of Black characters into everything so that everyone just gets used to it. You have to, higher learning? You have to force people to unlearn their behaviors. And that's a way to do it at scale. So anyways, today I'm ready for war. I continue to look for new solutions. The only people who I think we might be able to borrow from a solution right now is the LGBTQ community, because I think they're executing it well. Still far to go, but I think the execution is working.
I completely agree with that. Completely agree. The last question I want to ask, and I truly want everyone's answer on this. And be brief on this one. I want it to be very concise and very specific and very powerful, honestly. I want to ask you, if you had a direct line of communication directly to the ear of every single white person in America, every one of them, the ones who are true allies, the ones who despise you, the ones who are closet racists but sit right next to you at work. You could speak directly to every single one. They had to hear every word you had to say. What would you say to them? Ronell, I want to start with you.
Ronell, I'm just going to start and say it's a hard question to give you time to think, because that's a heck of a question.
And I know,
man. I'm buying you time right now, brother. I'm not jumping in. I'm not getting your back. Yeah, it's a hard question. That's a
and real talk.
The top you'll say, I'm not taking a bullet for you, but I'll tell you what.
Right, I'm not taking that bullet. I'll be last.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys coming to help. I appreciate it. If I were to say, talking to those folks, here's off the top of my head, and what I've been feeling for a while, actually, is the comments that were made previously. I'm not a violent person. I feel like I have a right to live. And not only a right to live, but my freedom should be based upon my right to live. Mm-hmm. And that freedom that I'm expressing and that I'm demanding and that I am required to be given is that of all the Black community. And not just all the Black community, but all those who are underrepresented, who feel oppressed in any way. And that freedom, it should be given freely. And I want it. And I don't just want it, but I expect it. Mm-hmm. And for me, the other part that I think is crucial is that my color does not define me. My color is part of who I am. And when I say it doesn't define me, is that you can't look at my color and think of me in context of what you want to think of from a historical standpoint or whatever story that has been created in your mind over the last several decades and hundreds of years that has been created that has put me in a position of inferiority in your mind. Because in my mind, I'm not inferior. My value is that of heaven sent, right? It's God given. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And if I think to my core, if I think about what I want to see, as I want to see a level of respect. I want to see a level of respect and not just given just because I'm asking for it, but for you to look at me as a person who you desire to respect because I do belong. And not that I belong in your world, but I do belong in this world. And I have a right to be here and to belong.
Ronell, I know you said, you had to think through that, but brother, you sure somebody didn't leak the question to you? Like, you kind of killed that, bro. You kind of did that. That little block at the top of your deal. It was a quote, wasn't it?
He got my second favorite quote. My first one was, "We're better at business." My second one is, "My value is heaven sent." Dude, I feel you.
That was real.
My value is heaven sent.
Aaron, brother's on you.
Yeah, man. Actually, you know what? This backs into my quote, right? So, if I had the ear of all the white people in America, what would I say to them? My quote actually comes from, Che Guevara. If you tremble with the indignation at every injustice, then you are a comrade of mine. If you tremble at the indignation of every injustice, then you are a comrade of mine. At this moment, I would say, I don't want your sympathy. I want your voice, right? I don't want your thoughts and prayers. I want your action, and because here's the thing. Here's when a white man comes up to me and says, "Oh, I'm sorry this happened," I'm like, "Okay, thank you." But are you one of the, 62% of you guys who voted for Donald Trump? Because 62% of white men voted for Donald Trump. And I think the number was 50-something% of white women voted for Donald Trump. And so I'm like, your words at this point mean very little to me. I want to see you take action. And the action I want you to take is go to the polls and vote for something different. Vote for somebody who's not actually encouraging this. It's not even that he's not saying it. This dude is actually saying these are very fine people.
Yeah.
This, they are not very fine people. They are your supporters, but you should condemn them. And then at least you won't have my vote, but you'll have my respect at that point. Well, you won't have my respect because you've done a lot of other shit that, but
you'll be closer to it.
That's right. Like you'll get 0.5% more. But like, that's what I want you to say, man. Like I'm tired, man. Brother, I'm tired. Sorry. What I would say to you,
right, brother,
man, is
no apologies necessary.
Keep it flowing.
Is don't hit me with your thoughts and prayers, and I'm with you, and I'm an ally in my text messages and my DMs. Take that to the voting booth, man. That's what I want to tell. That's what I want you to tell me, that you're with me in the voting booth.
I'm with that. Dan, I think you're back, right?
I'm back.
Welcome back, Dan.
Did you hear the question?
Dan was pouring a drink.
I was 3 pages in, like Aaron said.
All right, brother. Let me know what you would say on your direct line to the ear of every white person.
You know what? First of all, I love the responses. I've loved and enjoyed this entire conversation that we've had here. I'm not going to claim to say something as deep and prolific as Renell and Aaron and Detavio, but what I will say is that I will want to let them know to stop killing us, to let us live. And similar to what Aaron was saying, they need to understand that their silence is deafening. The fact that they will not and do not post about when we get killed, but then they'll post about when a white person is killed, or they post about kittens and dogs or their babies and ignore my pain. I am tired of it. I no longer will accept it. I am ready to definitely, in terms of this, sphere of influence that I have and those who are, non-Black and my sphere, I'm going to be letting them know. I'm putting them on notice. You can no longer remain within sort of, connected, directly connected to me without getting involved, without acknowledging my pain and my people's pain anymore. But it would be to stop killing us, to stop being silent, and to do something about this problem and correct it. Help be the change that that you can, impact, because they as a white person, you can sort of, have these discussions in rooms that I will never be involved or invited to. Yeah. Any of us on this call, won't be invited to. And so it's kind of like, start talking to your family members, basically to stop being racist and to do something about it.
Amen.
Sounds simple, right? Sounds simple.
I mean, I'm simplifying it, but it's like, stop killing me. Tell your family members to stop being racist.
Man, brother, what would you say in your direct line to white America?
Yeah, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to do them real fast. One, at some point in time, somebody's going to have to answer this question for me, which is, how do you raise the price on free breakfast? Now, we don't have to do that now, but I'm super confused about that. And that's my first time hearing. Two, embedded in Aaron's comment is the response to a question, which is, well, what would we say to Black folks? And my quick answer there is Benjamin Franklin has this quote that says, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately. And I think for Black people, it's like literally, we will all hang separately, right? And so I think that's a lot of what, captures a lot of what Aaron was saying that I fully believe in. And then in terms of what I would say to white folks, whether they're racist or allies and whoever they are, I started with treat me like when you meet me, treat me the way you would treat your sister or your brother. That's probably, I don't need you to love me, and it's probably too much to ask for a racist to love me. But my next is just treat me like you treat your neighbor. Like, you're not shooting your neighbor. You're not assuming your neighbor is up to no good. You're not chasing your neighbor down the street with guns to see what they're doing, right? Just start from a position of good intentions. Start with a position of I might be angry, I might be mad, I might even be messing up, but just start from a position that death is not the only way that you have to take me. I'm watching white folks specifically stormed the buildings in Michigan, like state government buildings, with guns on their back, yelling and screaming at police officers. Whatever that is, I'm captioning it as like, treat me like your neighbor. Whatever that is that allows you to look at all those white people with guns and not shoot and kill them, I just want that same treatment. I'm not asking for anything different. I'm not asking for anything special. I just want whatever that is in your mind and in your heart when they are spitting on you with their COVID breath, which could actually kill you, and you still don't move. I want whatever that is. Give me that.
Yep. Give me that. 2 of them.
I bring that.
But look, brothers, I appreciate every moment and every word that you spent and delivered here. I know our listening audience is going to appreciate it. I want to close this out. I asked several women to give me these questions, right? There are a few of them I sprinkled in myself, but the majority of these questions came from Black women who truly do care about us as Black men. I asked this question of a new friend of mine, Martina Abrahams, from the podcast You Had Me at Black, and she said she didn't have a question, but she did have some positive affirmation that she wanted to share. So I'm going to read what she wrote. It's very short to the Black men on this line, and just as important to every Black man that's listening. What Martina had to say is this: you are loved, you are valued, you are needed. You are more than enough. You are human.
Thank you, sis.
I want every brother that heard that to just take a second and let that seep in, because I truly do believe the majority of us don't hear those type words enough. And Lord knows the messages that are fed to us do not reinforce those thoughts. So please, brothers out there, take a second, remember who you are, remember what you are, remember why you are. And when you can remember that, maybe we can move forward a little bit more. But with that, Wild Black, we love you.
Thank you.
Peace. We out.
Peace.